a video on this tiny little crystal. I can't really focus on it, can't really hold it still enough. But that little crystal came from my grape jelly that I made. So the grape jelly is now, I don't know, 4 months old, maybe 5 months old, maybe. And these little crystals have started to form in it. So, and it reminded me, so you can hear it, you can actually hear that it's a crystal. Can't really focus on it, kind of focus there. That's a slightly better view. But it reminded me that when we used to recently make red wine sauce in a restaurant that I worked in, and to give it a bit of, because when you're reducing stock and you're reducing wine and other ingredients, foods can start tasting a little bit stewed. So you kind of you still have the flavour of things, but they don't taste particularly fresh anymore. So what you can do is you can add a little bit of acid to things, and that kind of brightens things up a little bit, and adds a little bit of a punch back to foods. But what we used to do with red wine was we used to reduce a bottle of red wine by maybe down to a tenth of its original volume, and then use that little bit of red wine, just a few drops in a red wine sauce, would give it a little bit of a pick up. I might pick it up a little, perk it up a little bit. And it was kind of quite an interesting thing to kind of quite see, and it turned a nothing, an okay sauce into something a little bit more special. But I remember that if we kept this wine reduction in the fridge just a little bit too long, crystals used to form in the bottom of it, and it used to turn to vinegar. And I always kind of thought that, well, it used to taste vinegary. I can't remember if it turned to vinegar as such. So, and I was kind of thinking that I always thought that vinegar turned wine. It was wine that turned into vinegar because of the alcohol. I didn't really, and I thought, and now I'm thinking to myself, I'm kind of quite intrigued about that, and I need to take some red wine and I need to reduce it to see if we can form some crystals, just out of interest. And if the wine does go to vinegar, you kind of think that maybe potentially it's a waste of a good bottle of wine. But I'm kind of quite curious. I can't remember if the wine just went like off and went a bit crystallized, or it actually turned to a vinegar. I'm just curious. So I've had to wait until I found one of these crystals in the grape jelly to kind of show you, and I haven't got any red wine to start off with. So over the next couple of days, I will buy some red wine. We'll reduce it, and then we'll put it into a container, and we'll see if we can get it to turn into crystals, and then we'll give it a taste. Yeah. So the crystal, it's not like eating it's I lost it. Oh no, it's on my finger. So it's not as if it's not like a bit of glass or anything like that, because we can crunch it like that. So it's just like an unsweet sugar crystal, which just crunches up. So it's obviously down to the grapes. So it's the grapes that I've made the grape jelly out of, and the wine is obviously made out of grapes. So it's something in the grapes. So it might be something to do with the tannin. Obviously, like grape jelly has got sugar in it. The wine will have some sugar in it, but not that much. So it's certainly not sugar crystals that are forming. So it might actually be like not pectin, like a tannin crystal. I really should do some research. I probably won't. So I bought some cheap red wine. It was an Australian Shiraz. It was about £4.15 for a bottle, and I've boiled it to reduce it. So we have made a red wine concentrate. So if you ever want to kind of like boost the flavour of your soups and stews and casseroles and things, reduced red wine, and it gives like a lovely intense kind of flavour, and it gets rid of that, some of the tannin flavours, and gets rid of the alcohol as well. So alcohol can toughen meat up, so you've got to be a little bit careful when you add alcohol to stews and things. So reduce it down to that, which is what, 300 millilitres, something like that. So how's it taste? It tastes like reduced red wine. Bit of a nothingy kind of flavour, actually. Bit of a nothingy kind of flavour. Yeah, so it wasn't particularly very good quality of red wine, but we're not doing it with a good quality of red wine, this experiment. We're seeing if the crystals form at the bottom of the red wine, and if it turns sour, like vinegar type of thing. And for that to happen, we need to have the lid not tight so the air can get to it. So we'll leave it on the side somewhere, out of the way, that's not going to get knocked over, and keep checking on it every few days and see if it turns to a vinegar and if it gets some crystals in there. Let's have a look at these wine crystals. Oh, we've got a bit of mould on the top of there. That's not good, is it? We have a little bit of mould growth. That might be down to something that was in the jar, or that might be down to some wine going up. Let's get another spoon. Let's have a dig around at the bottom and see if there are any more crystals formed on the bottom. Yeah, there's definitely crystals on the bottom, but I don't know if we're getting lots of crystals or there's just going to be a certain amount of crystals that get made. How's it taste? Hopefully it won't poison me. That's certainly a lot more vinegary than last time. So the experiment continues. We might just have to keep that in the fridge. We'll keep that in the back of the fridge. So if there is any kind of more bacterial growth on it, it'll slow that process down, but I don't think any kind of cooler temperature would hinder the formation of crystals. So what's that? Those are just crystals at the top. How does this taste, which was the wine with a few of those crystals in? Has it turned into vinegar? Has it turned it off? It's affected the flavour slightly. It's just not quite as sweet. It's quite a sweet wine, this cheap stuff, which I think will probably have a bit of an impact on how fast a vinegar forms. So if we kind of think of it, if a wine is kind of quite dry, it's almost a little bit vinegary to start off with, whereas something sweet, sweet things take a little bit longer to turn it into vinegar. It's certainly affected the flavour, and it's certainly got a bit of a rose colour, but it doesn't look like the crystals are massively turning into something at the bottom of there, but we'll just leave it for another few weeks and see what happens. Right, let's have a look at these red wine crystals. So this has been in the fridge now, so that bit of bacteria that we had on top, that bit of mould has kind of disappeared. We've got some crystals in the bottom, but not that many. I don't think we're going to get... There's not any more in the 2 or 3 weeks that have formed. So I think there's probably a finite amount of crystals that will form from this red wine. And it's not really kind of changed its flavour. Obviously I have to remember what it tastes like. I can't, there's nothing to compare it to. So, but it's not as sharp as it used to be, so maybe the crystals have kind of had something to do with that. But anyway, so I think that's about it for that experiment. It's not turned super sour. It just kind of got to a stage where it was sour, and then kind of didn't progress further past that point. Where's my cloth? So those are the red wine crystals in the bottom of this white wine. So that hasn't grown or anything like that in this time, so it hasn't speeded up. It doesn't look like it's pulled any crystals out of the wine, or added, well, kind of grown. So how does it taste? Oops. It tastes watery more than anything. It hasn't gone vinegary. It hasn't gone sour. It's not as sweet as it used to be. So I think that's probably it for that experiment. Nothing else in much is going to happen with it. But anyway, so there's success in everything. Isn't it? We learn more through failure than we do through success. But that we have learned that there's only so many amount of crystals that actually going to form, and those crystals aren't going to kind of affect another one if you put them in. It's not like a culture or anything like that. I kind of thought, like, you do those experiments when you're a kid, and you might like you get is it like a sodium crystal? So or if you crystallize sugar. So I've forgotten the lesson. We did do advanced pastry when I was at college, and learning about sugars, and I forget which sugar it is. But like so if you leave sugar syrups long enough, what the two is they crystallize and they kind of form into big crystals. So it's not kind of done that. It hasn't, that little bits of crystal hasn't formed bigger crystals, and it hasn't really kind of turned it off. So it's not like adding a vinegar mother to it, although I suppose it would do over a longer period of time. There's probably additives in the wine that kind of stop that from happening as much, and probably through reducing the wine like we did there, then that kind of concentrates it and speeds up the kind of process. But it's got more of a pinky tinge to it. But anyway, so yeah, we've learnt something, so that's a good thing. But it's not kind of led anywhere interesting. It's like knowledge that you kind of know that you can't do anything with. But anyway, so from that point of view, kind of a success, isn't it? But interesting all the same. So that's the end of that, I think. Although these will probably sit at the back of the cupboard, and I'll probably find them in 2 years' time, and then we'll probably end up doing something with them, because that's generally how things happen with me. I like after Christmas, I go through all the cupboards and I pull out all the bits of like the leftover cranberry sauce from Christmas and some red currant jelly and any kind of jars or something similar, and then I add some ingredients to that, and I make a Cumberland sauce, and then I make an onion ketchup. So because I've always got bits of odds and sods about, I make like my own brown sauce ketchup, and everything goes in that, absolutely anything and everything. So these experiments might end up in something like this at some time in the future, which is not something that anyone else would ever have. But from my point of view, it's more a lesson in kind of using things up. While we're here, we'll just do a little taste of the brown sauce. So this is the brown sauce that I made, the onion ketchup that I made. So it's got all kinds of things in it this time, and it changes its flavour over time. So I wanted to use it straight. I started using it straight away, but obviously the longer you mature it, the better it kind of tastes. So this is, I've probably had this about 3 weeks now, so it will have changed flavour again. It's nice, that's nice and fruity. But anyway, so at some point in the future, they'll probably end up in some kind of other experiment. But that's it for now. Definitely no more of this video. I won't make it last any longer. I've had enough, to be honest.